Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Tonight on America Decides, what is the signal and what is the noise? A journalist mistakenly received Trump administration war plans in advance of an attack on Houthis in Yemen. This stunning security lapse coming his way on an unsecured commercial app known as Signal. Was the information classified? Were laws broken? Could this lead to a shakeup within Trump's national security team? Among those texting about the secret plans, including, quote, operational details, unquote, were National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that.
I inadvertently discovered a massive security breach in the way the national security establishment conducts its business.
It was not great timing for the Trump administration, but it was pretty good timing for all those with questions about this snafu. Today, top intelligence officials held their annual Senate hearing on worldwide threats, and there, Democrats took the opportunity to push for more answers on this whole war plans chat group, while Republicans worked as best they were able to minimize the damage.
This is one more example of the kind of sloppy, careless, incompetent behavior, particularly towards classified information.
Obviously not a good thing. Again, it'll be up to the president, seeing how he wants to handle it. I'm sure it's a mistake that's been corrected right now.
So many other questions. Had there been warnings, for example, from allies, from tech firms, and even from within the Pentagon about the dangers of using Signal to discuss any sensitive information or plans? And how about those U.S. military raids against Houthi targets? Were they a success? The White House says unequivocally yes and adds that's all that really matters. But who are the Houthis? What are they doing? And will this aggressive new Trump-era military campaign against them reopen shipping or increase the risk of a wider Middle Eastern war? Our goal in the next hour, sort out as much of this as possible. And of course, we will have the deluge of reaction from Capitol Hill and reminders about past political statements regarding the care required in handling classified information. I want to start tonight with Fin Gómez and James LaPorta and Nikole Killion. James, I want to start with you because you have brand new reporting on a bulletin issued regarding Signal from the NSA.
I do. So today, CBS News obtained a bulletin that went out to all NSA employees in February 2025. So this is a month before the Houthi Signal chat was created. What this bulletin basically said was it detailed the vulnerabilities of using Signal. One of them being that they have information that Russian hacking groups are using Signal to send out phishing scams in order to bypass the encryption software that Signal uses to get into chat rooms. And that way, Russian hackers can see the actual chats, the messages going back and forth. It also detailed how, even if it's unclassified information, it should not be on Signal whatsoever. Unclassified information, controlled unclassified information, or anything that dealing with for official use only information should not be on Signal, period.
So this is a bulletin issued under the National Security Agency's aegis, the Trump administration's National Security Agency, to everyone who might think about using Signal.
Correct. That's absolutely right. I mean, the NSA said, use it to communicate with your families and your friends, but not to share unclassified information, not to share troop movements and things like that, things that are not classified, things that are not on the top secret level.
So we mentioned this at the top of the show. John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard, two significant members of the Trump administration, the national security realm, were at the Senate hearing and talked about this. Let's listen.
My communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee.
So, James, I'm curious about this verbal effort today to minimize what this was, because several people, including the president, have suggested this wasn't classified.
Right.
Does that mean that there has been a retroactive declassification of it? Because it seems to me, based on my elemental knowledge of these kinds of plans, that in the moment, they are definitely classified.
U.S. intelligence officials that I've spoken to over the past day, members of the U.S. military, anybody dealing with classified material does not understand how talking about targeting plans is not classified. They don't understand that.
Timing, munitions,
targets, potential collateral damage reports, things of that nature. Those are all on the secret or top secret level. But let's say, for the sake of argument, they are. Let's say they are unclassified. According to the NSA bulletin, they're still violating cybersecurity protocols. They're still violating operational security protocols. So that's the NSA, and according to intelligence officials and members of the military. So regardless if they're classified, they still feel that there's a violation.
Finn, I want to get to you about what the implications are for National Security Advisor Mike Waltz in a moment, but I want to refresh all of our memories about past political statements from Republicans about the need to look out for classified information and to treat it with the utmost care. Let's play that.
It is irresponsible for an elected official in her capacity to be discussing highly sensitive things on a format that she had to have known was not fully secured.
And the risk of that is?
The risk of that is that we're giving opponents of this government or adversaries some insight.
Don't forget, there's 30,000 other emails that she said she deleted about yoga class and gifts, but the FBI's recovered a lot of those. If even a few of them contain classified secret or top secret information, that's even more damning.
Many of us felt that there should have been a prosecution started with respect to Hillary Clinton regarding classified emails.
You will note, Fin Gómez, that all three of those sound bites come from current members of the national security team of the President of the United States.
And all three members were also in that Signal chat.
They were indeed.
Major, no, look, if on Waltz,
yes,
you were asking about Waltz earlier. Like we have talked to, CBS News has talked to several sources close to the White House, close to the administration, on his future, if you will. And you know, from early on, he's had his detractors. Some have said he is not MAGA enough, that he's sort of a closet neocon, of course, but he has a fervent amount of support also within Trump world. We saw that since some of the outcry, some of this backlash, the fallout, if you will, since the Signal story broke. But they have circled the wagons around him. But the president himself was asked about this, and he said that he does not think that Waltz should apologize. He's doing his best, and he called him a very good man. However, Major, he did ask him to look into this matter.
And the looking into part is sound I want to play for the audience right now from the president with Mike Waltz, the National Security Advisor, sitting around the table. Let's listen.
But it's not a perfect technology. There is no perfect technology. The really good ones are very cumbersome, very hard to access. I don't think he should apologize. I think he's doing his best. It's equipment and technology that's not perfect, and probably he won't be using it again.
Read the body language there, Finn.
The body language is very Trumpian, I think, in the sense that he is supporting his guy, if you will, but at the same time, there's a little bit of distance there, right? And I think with, so I think privately we have heard that Trump is upset about this. He
described it as a glitch in public.
A glitch in public. But remember, as we know, Major, we've been
They don't acknowledge glitches.
And Trump doesn't acknowledge mistakes.
Right.
Very rarely does he say, I am sorry, or there was a mistake made by administration or by my surrogates. Because by saying that, by acknowledging that, is a show of weakness. And that is something that President Trump does not like to portray.
This, of course, is a story that ricocheted all around Capitol Hill, so I want to bring in Nikole Killion to join us for a summation of the reaction from Capitol Hill. Nikole, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us. I want to play you kind of a gathering of Republicans outside of the Republican Capitol Hill Club talking about this, and then I'll get you on the other side. Let's give it a listen.
It's either a horrible mistake or someone did it on purpose to do somebody in. You know, my buddy Mike Waltz is a straight-up guy, and he's very honest, honorable. He's a patriot.
We all make mistakes, so I'm sure that was not something that he intended or something that he wanted to happen. Give him a pass.
Look, mistakes happen. If it was a mistake, it is what it is, and it won't happen again. I know that.
Nikole, the word of the day: mistake.
Yeah, and that is something that Speaker Mike Johnson reiterated as well, that he believes that this was a mistake, also defending Mike Waltz and telling reporters just yesterday that he doesn't think that he should resign. I would note that Mike Waltz did resign from Congress earlier this year, and his seat is actually up for grabs next week in a special election. So even if he did decide to step down, he couldn't necessarily come back to his seat in this body. So for now, even on Capitol Hill, many congressional Republicans continue to rally behind him. I would note there is a little bit of daylight when you look at Senate Republicans, though. You know, talking to Senate Armed Services Committee Chair Roger Wicker, he did say that he's been talking to his counterpart on the committee, Jack Reed, that all options are on the table as far as they are concerned. So it is an issue where they might try to potentially hold a hearing in the future, seek more information, try to get a hold of that text thread if possible. And that is something that Leader Thune reiterated as well. So yes, while everybody acknowledges it was a mistake, there are some Republicans who are willing to look into this further. Certainly congressional Democrats have been very clear they believe that there should be some sort of congressional investigation, but more of those calls among Republicans tend to be on the Senate side. Perhaps maybe the Senate Armed Services Committee might be that starting point.
And James, it's evident that Jeff Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, is in possession of much of this unreleased information, which he said he didn't release out of deference and respect for a sensitive national security process.
Right. It's very chilling if the safety is coming from someone not in the national security community, right? But to your point, today, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said it's all unclassified. And the common thing we heard from lawmakers was, well, release it.
Release it. Let's let the public see it.
But I will tell you what's really on the line is credibility. The American public's going to debate the merits of this. People I've been hearing from the intelligence community and the military community have been saying, look, and these guys have also campaigned on this for a while, that if this was a private, if this was a low-level intelligence analyst, the book would be thrown at them, right? If it was unclassified or if it was classified, right? And so now credibility is on the line where they're now facing, they're now the senior leaders. Right. And so for these intelligence community members, for the military, it's like, well, you guys have been preaching holding the senior leaders accountable, and now you're in this crisis. What is your decision? What are you going to do?
That's an excellent way to wrap this up. James LaPorta, Fin Gómez, Nikole Killion on Capitol Hill. Thanks for getting us off to a great start on a very important news day.